That's pretty good. It just came over the top of my head. I could be a comedian. Tuttle is in the other room, asleep behind the registration desk, snoring, just Why? He was like, I was afraid I wouldn't get up. I slept for an hour. We ready? Good morning, everyone. That sounds like I feel. Welcome to Outerzone 6. Everybody having a good time so far? I have a good time last night. We didn't drink anything, did we? No. I didn't get the chance to drink anything except coffee last night. So tonight, the object is to get Skydog drunk, which probably won't be too difficult. So, last night I was goofing around taking some pictures. We don't, at Outerzone Inc., actually don't have a photo policy, whatever you want to call it. So, as far as I know, if you're here, it's entirely possible you get your picture taken, most likely in a compromising situation involving alcohol and someone's penis. But you want to be careful. If you don't want to be in a picture, you want to dodge out of the way if you see a camera come out. If you realize you're in a flash and you catch up to that person and say, hey, do you mind, deleting that picture? If you're the person who took the picture, please be kind enough to remove it if someone's paranoid enough about being in pictures of, coming to this con. Good Lord. DEF CON has a very, very strict no camera policy. If you take a picture of someone in a large crowd, the guys in the red shirts will come over and beat you about the head and neck. We don't really have that because I think everyone here is just here to have a good time, and they're not too worried about being associated with Outerzone or other hackers and things of that nature. So we are recording video. Let's see, you've got a mixed version that's available immediately, which you can't have, but that's available immediately. Have you ever seen, okay, I'm not going to say who's ever bought the DEF CON videos because there's not too many people in the room, I think, that's ever actually bought those videos, but some people have actually seen the DEF CON videos. Who's seen them? You bought them? I got them for $25 because I'm a goon. So anyway, and Scott expensed them. So they do a thing called synchro view where they do the presenter in the upper left-hand corner and the slides in the right-hand corner. Iron Geek has come up with some code for AVI synth. He's going to be able to do that same type of thing for us. So where we have a mixed version that cuts back and forth between the slides and different cameras, he'll be able to, excuse me, can someone get rid of the old fucker in the back of the room? Didn't bring me any coffee, did you, bastard? So we'll have the both versions available that will be on the Outerzone site. The reason that we did what we did with the move to an SD card MPEG-4 compression system so we can get them up faster. Last year, Iron Geek sat here all weekend long and did nothing but rip video and upload it so it would be available. We're going to try to do the AVI synth and give you a much better experience that way. So all of that's coming together over here, Seablind and Molten, the Bite Assassin. Wise ass. They're running all the AV stuff today, so if you don't get a good experience, say something to them. So that will be hopefully available in the next week or so. You can send me an email, but if you sent me one before, you realize I probably won't answer it anyway. So that stuff will be coming out. The T-shirt rig, we'll be firing up the T-shirt rig in a couple hours, I guess, whenever I get Tuttle back up. We've got the T-shirts. The graphic we have is actually the design where everyone signed last year. We had 50-plus signatures from last year that will be cutting those shirts. I also have what was it? I did some cute little saying or something like that. If you don't like the Outerzone shirt, you can get one of those. I also did some canvas tote bags just for fun. If someone didn't want to buy a shirt but wanted something with the Outerzone logo. And really, when you get down to it, I'll write on your chest with a Sharpie if you want the Outerzone logo. This room is designated only for the conference area where talks are going on. Last year I was making T-shirts in the corner. Registration was in the back. We had people stacked everywhere. So now it's just the con room where we're doing the talks. If you go back down the hallway to the lobby and make a left, as you go down the hallway, there is another room. It's the Clipper room or the Kitty Hawk or some other bullshit name they give these rooms. Depending on the price that you pay for your space is the prestigious name. When you go to the Opryland Hotel, it's all named after presidents. Here it's named after geographic locations or something. Do what? Yeah. Scary. So that room is the registration area. We also will be doing T-shirts there. You can sign up for the Nintendo DS Mario Kart tournament we're doing, which we're going to fire that up in an hour or two when everyone gets enough coffee in them. 1 o'clock. We're going to do that at 1 o'clock. I've been corrected. We also have the Make Your Own Badge station. I've got a bunch of crayons and markers and goofy shit like that. So you can make your own badge. I guess we'll end up having a competition later on for beer. So be creative. Have a good time with that. Go to the registration desk to get your actual badge laminate, and the laminator's on and running, dear Lord. The chick at Target wanted to know why I was buying Play-Doh. So she said, "Oh, someone's having a birthday party." And I said, "No, actually, this is for, 20 to 50-year-olds to put on the table for them to play with." Like, Zev, you can still play. We'll let you. You have to sign a waiver, though. Can't eat it. Can't eat it, okay? So that stuff's there to mess with when you're just relaxing. If you don't want to listen to the talk and you want to go do something with your hands for therapy, Ziploc. That stuff's there. If you got a cell phone camera, take a snapshot of it and end up emailing it to me. I'd really like to collect some pictures of the goofy crap that everyone makes when they're tripping on Adderall and coffee. So a lot of that stuff's out of the way. I'm going to get the hell out of here and go back and do some more operational stuff. Thanks for sticking with me. I know everyone wants to choke me over the website, but next year we will have a website czar, and he will take care of, or she, sorry, will take care of all of the website stuff. So that I can just send a missive and it'll get taken care of. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up Gene Bransfield with the Why Security People Suck. I wrote it down on the sheet just so I wouldn't screw something up, and damned if it's right here in front of me. I met Gene at ShmooCon. How many the Shmoo balls? How many did you guys get? You brought, who's been to Shmoo? A few of us. Okay, they have a tradition where they have foam rubber balls, and if someone's on stage talking and you want to call bullshit, instead of standing up and screaming, "I don't think that's right," you stand up and throw a foam ball at them. And it's called a Shmoo ball. Well, they've been doing it for several years. There's been a year when they were made out of a denser foam and they were much more painful to get hit by. So Larry from Hack Naked, the Paul.com guys, they actually made a compressed air Shmoo ball shooter, which would shoot 5 of them, and it was in excess of 90 miles an hour, I think. It was insane. Someone had to sit and do the calculations on it. So now it's become a cottage industry to build systems to launch Shmoo balls. So I met Gene at ShmooCon because he brought 2,200 of them with him, which they had brought 2,000, I think. It was there was a mix-up in communication. I don't know how that happens, but so yeah, there were black Shmoo balls all over the place, and literally every time you walked by their booth, they were throwing, "Just take these. Fuck, we don't want them. Take them. Get them away from us." So I think I have 20 or 30 of them at the house that made it back in my luggage, which I'll be promptly sending them to. Do what? No, I'm not that talented. So Gene's going to talk, and then after that, Iron Geek is going to get up here and do his talk, and then I'll probably get up before then and yammer some more. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for making it out nice and early. Appreciate it.
Good morning. The other part that the thing I need to talk about before this talk gets started is talked to Skydog at ShmooCon, told him about the idea for a talk, and he says, send me an email with a short write-up. So I did, and I heard nothing until Tuesday. So I'm like, I don't have any slides, but I'm like, fuck it, no guts, no glory, let's do this, right? So, forgive me if things are a little bit choppy. Let's get started. Who the hell am I? I'm Gene Bransfield. You know that already. Senior Systems Security Engineer with Tenacity Solutions Incorporated. What do I do? Contracting, federal government type stuff, consulting, system evaluations, penetration testing, and mal-user testing when they let me do it. It's kind of fun when they do, but most of the time I'm sitting embedded with groups of people going, no, you really do need to patch your system before you put it on the internet. Things like that. It's a good job. What's this talk about? Security, the people who do it for a living, me, you, them, us, and thoughts about information security in the world, how to make it better. That's what we do. We make stuff better by breaking things, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, by the way, legal disclaimer, thoughts, opinions, and rants contained in the presentation I'm about to give are those of me, and not necessarily the opinions, thoughts, rants of Tenacity Solutions, any of its customers or employees. Unless, of course, you guys like this talk, in which case they're all for it. Okay. So, what spawned this idea? ShmooCon, I'm sitting there listening to Bruce Potter give his opening speech, and he says, we've had years of conventions, hacks, fixes, things like that, but there's vulnerabilities all over the place still. I mean, we've been doing this since the late 80s, early 90s, and stuff is still broke with stuff that's been vulnerable since the late 80s, early 90s. So why? And I'm like realizing developers don't know any better, executives don't care, and it seems like nobody's told them. And figured, well, whose fault is this, right? Well, I'm looking around here. It's a hacker conference. Are there any CEOs in the room? Any CFOs? Any lead developers? Guys that don't own their one-person business besides those guys? No. So, who's in the room? Hackers, right? Who do we talk before, during, and after the con? Hackers. Who reads our articles? Hackers, right? How's this information supposed to get out to other people besides our own clique? And, oh yeah, we do have a clique. It's a very interesting, weird clique. Are we really helping? I think we're more responsible than they are because we have the knowledge, the experience, and the talent to fix this stuff. But we're standing on the sidelines looking at them screaming, you're doing it wrong, right? We know the answers. We wait for people to screw up, and then we stand there and laugh at them. So really, whose fault is the lack of security on the internet? Fail. It's our fault. It's your fault. It's my fault, right? What? Wait a minute. How is it our fault, right? You're like, we have told them. They don't listen. I've hacked things. I showed them how their shit's vulnerable. What the hell else am I supposed to do? Well, we're doing it wrong. Yeah. I still don't know what this guy's doing, really. Yeah. So, do you read the Bible, Ringo? Before we get into this, I'm using the Bible as a metaphor, similar to other hackers using Star Wars as a metaphor. And if I was using Star Wars as a metaphor, I would not expect somebody to stand up in the back of the room and go, Jedis aren't real! Okay? So, bear with me. Acts 2, 9 through 11. It's talking about the Pentecost. The apostles received the gifts of tongues. So, when they speak, everybody hears them and understands them. Now, this was not done that he went around to each apostle and let him speak every other language. No, the apostle spoke, and this guy, whatever his nationality, heard and understood it. So this is kind of like God's going to say, okay, I don't want the risk of teaching this guy to speak Farsi. So instead of him speaking Farsi, I'm going to make that guy, he'll speak Jewish, and the guy out there will hear it in Farsi. It's kind of like a program manager saying, well, I don't want to include this security fix on my box. I'll just push it out to the internet, and you guys will provide that. So God is a PM here. So this ridiculously successful public relations trick, and it was, spread Christianity far and wide, of course, with the help of the Roman Empire and some genocide. But what are we doing? We're preaching to the choir, right? Before they received the gift of tongues at the Pentecost, they were just talking amongst themselves. So, oh yeah, Jesus is really cool, isn't he? Yeah, he's really cool. Well, they're all friends of Jesus, so everybody thinks he's cool, right? Now they can talk to everybody, and everybody can find out how cool this is. So similar to the early Christian prophets, we need to get out there and spread the word to people of strange, foreign, and ignorant heathen cultures like business guys, developers, and end users. So, right, let's go out and preach the truth to those heathen bastards who don't understand, right? Of course, you know, the apostles, they ended up dying in some rather unpleasant fashion, right? Most of them, yeah. What about the guy who thought it all up in the first place? Oh, him too. That wouldn't happen today, right? Would it? So, where are we going to go from here? We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about our focus groups. We're going to talk about being a security professional, and we're going to talk about, briefly, some thoughts about world domination. Oops, wrong button. So, definition of culture. All right, first definition is from Webster's, which is an American group. The second definition is from Cambridge, which is a British group. And the third one's from dictionary.com, which is, of course, internet. They're all saying the same thing, but they're saying it differently. And by differently, they're sort of leaving things in and out. Like the first one talks about racial groups. The second one doesn't make a mention of race. The third one's from the internet, so how good could that be, right? Yes. Notice I pronounced it British. I was working with a British guy one time, and I walked around the corner on his first day there, and I'm like, so, you're the new British guy, right? And he's like, no, it's British. I'm not the British guy. There's no D in there. There's a T. It's British. And I said, really? He said, yes. I said, how do you spell pompous? Yes. He and I were good friends after that. He said, touché. So in my early years, I was a Korean linguist for the U.S. Air Force. And they send you to a year and a half of training because you walk in and said, do you speak Korean? No. Well, guess what? So you go through a year and a half of training. When you're done with that, you're like very gung-ho. So I was like, okay, screw this cattle car thing. I want to fly to Seoul myself, and I'll find my way using my new Korean goodness to the Air Force base I'm supposed to be at. So I get on the plane, and I land in Seoul Airport, and I'm like, here we go. This is going to be great. And I walk out, and all the signs are in English, so that kind of sucked. But then I'm like, I really want a challenge here. So I sit down I go out there, I get a taxi, and I sit in the taxi, and I say, in Korean, please take me to Outerzone Air Force Base. And the guy says, And so I said it slower and louder. Please take me to Outerzone Air Force Base in the Korean. And the guy looks at me and says, what? He said it in English, right? And so I said even slower and even louder, please take me to, and he says, speak English! So that really kind of killed my ego right there. But I didn't realize what they teach you in these classes is a formal way of speaking Korean. Of course, that's not how it happens in the real world. You know, you walk out, what's up, man? Right? That's how you greet each other. You don't say, hello, sir, how are you today? Yeah? That's the same all over the place. So, and you also learn that culture, knowing the culture, goes a lot further toward communicating in a foreign language than just learning the vocabulary. Because there are nuances. We use them here. You speak male to female, old to young, proper and improper forms of language. It happens subtly, under the table. You realize it, but you don't realize it, because there's this basic understanding of things that you know internally that somebody from another culture doesn't know. And the other cultures won't correct you if they realize that you don't know it because of your culture. For example, the chopsticks in the rice. In Korea, or in most of Asian cultures, rice is life. It goes beyond food. It's almost a religion. You know, back in the day when there was no food, and they'll be very happy to tell you this because they have 3,000 years of recorded history, during the famine, we ate rice. And if we didn't eat rice, we'd have all died. So it's more like rice. So you're sitting there as an American in Asia, eating with chopsticks, and it's time to put down the food and drink beer, right? So you put down the bowl of rice, you stick the chopsticks in the rice, and you pick up your beer, right? Bad juju. Sticking the chopsticks in the rice, either sticking it straight in or just sort of leaving it in the bowl, is like symbolically stabbing life in the chest. If you're involved, if you're over at somebody's house for dinner, you've just really insulted the hostess. If you're in somebody's establishment, you've wished bad things upon their establishment. This is really bad stuff. It's extraordinarily offensive. And I didn't realize this, and nobody told it to me until a buddy of mine who was a missionary to Korea in his younger days. He said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he explained this all to me. I've been pissing these people off for about 5 months at this point, and nobody told me about it. Why? Because I wasn't part of their culture, and I didn't understand. So they didn't even bother explaining that I was pissing them off. This is very important. Okay, and this is not just in Asia. I mean, you talk about the British. Once again, back to the Brits. They're going to say shit to you like, "My mother's in hospital." And you're like, "Well, you mean in the hospital?" "No, in hospital. Speak the Queen's English." They're very pompous. But, I mean, it's subtle, but it's real, and it's really essential to communications. So we got to understand the culture and understanding their motivations, objections, fears, uncertainty, and doubt. We're taking FUD to MoFUD. And understanding the MoFUD leads to enhanced communications, increased victory, decreased fail. So, who are our different cultures? Business professionals, development community, end users. Yes, the business professionals are kind of like nobility. The developments are barbarians, of course. End users are peasants. No explanation needed there. And each culture is different because they have different MoFUD. Okay, so where does that leave the security professional, right? Who are we in this little paradigm? We are the knights. We are the knights who say, "Fail!" So, sorry, that hurt my head too. I'm hungover. Okay, the business professionals, the CXOs, PMs, management, why are they noble philosophers, right? Well, they're in charge. They have the money and the power, and they make decisions based on academia, numbers, training, experience, and they rarely seek the counsel from those whom their decisions affect directly. So they're sort of like nobility sitting up there going, "Let them eat cake." What are their MoFUD? Well, they want to make themselves look good, get the promotion. They want to guide the company and the organization toward profitability, and a lot of their decisions come down to get a bonus or get fired. That's pretty interesting. If I made a bad decision and got fired, I'd probably do a lot more toward making a better decision. And I've made a lot of bad decisions, like presenting at Outerzone on 2 days' notice. But so we have to learn their language, and you're like, "Wait a minute, why the hell do I have to learn their language? I'm the security guy, right? They should be listening to me. It's my friggin' job to do this. I know a hell of a lot more than they do about this. So why do I have to learn their language? Why shouldn't they learn my language?" Well, there are several reasons that this argument is invalid. The lesser of those reasons being, computer stuff is really hard for them. You start talking, you get the slightest bit technical, and their brain goes elsewhere. They start thinking about jujubes. They stop listening to you almost immediately because you're a geek. And because you're a geek, you obviously don't understand. It's the unwritten culture communication here. They're not going to bother to explain it to you because you don't understand their MoFUD because you're a geek. Not to mention the fact that geeks tend to overreact to security threats. We do. Sometimes. We really overreact. Yeah. I love this picture. Okay. So we have to learn their real reasons. We have to learn the language. Like I said, they have the money and the power. We need to influence their decision because when all hell breaks loose and the system goes down because of their bad decisions, they don't call the CFO, they don't call the CEO, they don't call the PM, they call you. And what happens to the guy who made the bad decision while you're in there wasting your weekend working on his broke-ass system? He's not there. He's out hanging out with someone who might be his wife. So, how do we suck? We're completely outside the decision-making process here. We're viewing things from a security perspective vice a business perspective. We don't understand their lingo, and we don't understand their MoFUD. So how do we start doing that? Well, you can't really start talking to the business guy until you understand his definition of risk. The official definition from a business perspective is the probability of loss in a firm's operations and environment may impair its ability to provide returns on investments. Business risk, which is competition in product, plus financial risk, which is how much money we're making versus how much we owe, equal total corporate risk. Handling this risk determines job goodness of the Noble Philosopher guy. Of course, you're all familiar with the CISSP, right? Everybody's CISSP. Okay, good. Asset value times exposure factor equals single loss expectancy times annual rate of occurrence equals annual loss expectancy. And I don't think it's strange that people are using AL when they choose their countermeasures. A lot of the countermeasures I've seen, the guy had to be drunk in the first place to put that in there. But I like my definition of risk, which is, do I have to put down my beer, turn off my hockey game, and come to work to deal with something that's broken because of your dumbass decision model? That's my favorite definition of risk. Because I really like my beer and my hockey games. So, problem with risk is it's subjective at certain levels. And in any mathematical model, you know that one bullshit number screws up the entire thing. Now, an economist will stand here and argue with me that these models are not subjective, but they really are. The recent economic crisis resulted in decisions by corporate finance guys, and those decisions were justified via a risk analysis that was put together by really hard math and very subjective numbers. So you put one piece of bullshit into the entire thing, and it all goes to hell. It's a demonstration how risk justification process can be very nebulous. There are other things that people aren't taking into consideration in risk, in my opinion. For example, let's talk about this guy, Robert Hansen. He was a mole at the... Boo, thank you. Yes, fuck this guy. I hate this guy. The mole at the FBI, he was working for the USSR. He exposed the existence of a covert tunnel under the Soviet embassy. The tunnel cost $100 million to build. When it was built, the intelligence was worthless, but we didn't know that, and the Russians were feeding misinformation into the intelligence community. What's the annual loss expectancy involved in this? Are we going to include the amount of money it took to build the tunnel? Are we going to include the amount of money it took to provide action on the intelligence that we were getting from that tunnel, the intelligence which was false? How about the lives lost acting on that intelligence? Something to think about. So similar to your organization, being first to market means you get buttloads of cash. Millions of dollars spent in initial development. Is that included in your risk analysis? 1 month before production, somebody hacks in and steals your development idea, beats you to market, and makes the buttloads of cash. Is that included in your risk analysis? Are you going to provide the proper countermeasures to deal with the millions of dollars you just spent in development and somebody stealing your system? Something else to think about. So, we've talked about their MOFA. Let's talk about one example of success that I have. I worked at the Air National Guard Network Operations and Security Center a while ago. This is in the early 2000 time frame. And in our Air National Guard, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, they have like 1 or 2 sites per state and territory. So that's like 120 sites coming through one security center. And I was the only guy doing security. Well, there were a couple, government people in there, but yeah, I was the only guy doing security. So we had a lot of worms disguised as .zip files in the email. I'm sure you all remember when that wonderfulness was going on. So natural, just block .zip at the SMTP gateway, right? Bam, fixes the problem immediately. Quick and simple, dirty. Well, the Peasants Revolted. You can't block .zip at the gateway. My mission is being affected. Pardon me, I'm hungover. Anytime you deal with the DOD, anything, if you do something they don't like, their first argument back to you is, you're affecting my mission. I can't complete my mission. People are going to die because you're blocking .zip at the gateway. Okay, but you can't really argue with this because they have a very large voice. And their other argument was that we've already updated our virus signatures. That's going to stop the attacks. Let the .zip through. And I'm like, you don't know. No, your virus signatures will stop this attack. They change one little thing and they name it .zip and the attack happens all over again. No. That fell on deaf ears. So the Peasants won, security lost, and we repeated the above scenario like 5 or 6 times in a couple of weeks. It really sucked. So I finally put a bit of data together and went and talked to the colonel. And I said, we're a 1 weekend a month, 2 week a year organization. One worm outbreak causes 3 days of downtime per unit. A weekend is 2 days, right? You're losing training opportunities. You're wasting dollars. You're affecting your mission readiness. And I had all the data to back this up. Gather the data. It makes a much more effective argument. Now, if you're going to send an email to somebody and it contains a .zip file, rename it from .zip to .piz, include in the email instructions to rename it back, and send it. People can do that. Automated viruses can't. Simple, right? Freaking simple. This was the actual look on his face. He had no idea. And this is an example of what I'm talking about the culture. He was of a different culture. Computers scared him. He was a manager. We're computer guys. The stuff that's extraordinarily easy to us is extraordinarily complicated to them. This is talking about understanding the MOFUD and communicating properly to these guys. Well, this is a policy change in the Air National Guard. My suggestion led to a policy change on a large government organization. It was as simple as that. Later, it was adopted at the Air Force at large and DOD, but I'm not going to claim victory for that because there's a lot of people doing that. Well, they haven't done that, though. I doubt it. It's entirely possible. But the question was, well, won't the virus writers just rename everything from zip to piz? It's entirely possible that they'll do that, but they haven't because they're getting a lot bigger market share to non-DoD organizations, really. I mean, they're not looking for this guy. They're looking for everyone. There are worm attacks that are spearfishing worm attacks that go on all the time that are looking for that guy. The guys who wrote this, they just wanted boxes. So the complete set of instructions were sent to the peasants. They bitched, but that's what peasants do. Who cares? They put me in a trusted advisor status with my boss, which was good. It achieved my security goals and gave him pointed business reasons that he could use to justify his excellence to his boss. It made him look good, wise, proactive, mission ready. It satisfied his MOFUD. So he was very happy with me, and I was very happy with him because I didn't have to get called at 3 in the morning because a stupid .zip file got expanded by somebody who, for reasons that I still don't understand. So keeping MOFUD in mind, performance of the systems directly reflect on the decision maker's performance. A lot of these CXO guys, most of their salary is tied to their bonus. So if you hear somebody who says, I make $300,000 a year, well, he'll make $150,000 a year in salary and $150,000 in bonus. These decisions that he makes directly affect his bonus. If you screw up at work and suddenly half of your salary is gone, you're thinking about that. You're thinking about everything you do. So the risks that guys talking to Financial Ward, tuning your arguments with cost-benefit analyses, win. So, metrics. There's a security metrics book written by Andrew Jackwith. It's really cool. It's written for security guys like us by somebody who understands a little bit more about the business side. The largest chapter in that book is dealing with charts and presentations. Business guys love pretty pictures. They do. If you can sum up your entire internet risk situation with one picture, and he'll teach you how to do that in this book, that's going to win you friends and influence people's left and right. Also the statistics. The old joke about a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and a statistician applying for the same job. They asked the doctor during the interview, what's 2 plus 2? And he says, my diagnosis is 4. They asked the lawyer, what's 2 plus 2? He says, based on the evidence, it's 4. They ask an engineer, what's 2 plus 2? He says, any fuckhead knows it's 4, because they're engineers. They asked a statistician, what's 2 plus 2? He says, what do you want it to be? Telling the story another way, you got to look at the data and what it says. I told a bunch of router guys to put some access lists on their router because they were getting pwned. I wrote the access lists for them. I know how to do that. I gave them to them. I did all the work. I said, all you need to do is put this on the router. So they bitched to their management. Says, these access lists increase our CPU utilization on our routers by 20%. That sounds really bad. So I looked at the data. So, okay, so basically what you're telling me is that the CPU utilization went from 20 to 24. That's not a significant hit. But they were telling the truth, as was I. We had another situation talking about reciprocity in the government. You have to bring a system to the government. It has to go through certification and accreditation. The thing that's driving developers mad is that it goes through certification and accreditation at this agency, and they bring it to another agency and it has to start the process all over again. They said, this is absolutely insane. Why are we doing this? So we talk about reciprocity. If it gets done here, then we move it over here, and you just do a couple residual tests for your environment, and you're good. You don't have to go through another 6-month process. Well, there are certain people out there that think this is a big, bad idea. And they did a presentation. We did a security event with that group, and they came to a security conference, and they gave the presentation. This is why reciprocity won't work. We did all this work with these guys. It took all this time, and there are still 20 outstanding findings that we couldn't address, therefore we could not approve this system. And they were right. And then I had the benefit of giving a presentation the next day and said, okay, everything they said was true. What they're not telling you is they had 300 and some odd requirements. The effort we put in together with them took less time, and we satisfied all but 20 requirements. Furthermore, it will take about 2 weeks to go back and re-verify those requirements. You've just cut your entire process down from 6 months to 2 weeks, and your system's online. Working the numbers, working the actual raw data is a brilliant thing. And statistics don't lie. People use statistics to lie. So, other things, learning about ways to tune your argument. Finance. Finance for Non-Financial Managers by Gene I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Really good. You've heard these terms, cash is king, money talks. This guy tells you why in this book. It also suggests that maybe a corporation is not a good idea to pay your bills on time. What? That doesn't make sense. Well, he explains why. It's a really good book. Read it if you've got, 10 minutes and a lot of problems sleeping. But wait a minute. We're at a security conference, right? This is a hacker conference. Why the hell are we talking about business shit? Business shit is boring. Oh, my God. I mean, learning about business, it interrupts my thirst for knowledge about technology and how this shit. We can't be elite hacksaw reading a finance book, right? Get the fuck over yourself. Seriously. Seriously. The amount of effort putting into after learning DNS and learning TCP/IP and learning how to program and do all this stuff, reading this business stuff is really simple. I mean, the finance gets into really complicated math, but you don't have to do that. It's not that hard compared to the amount of brain power it takes to do most of our day-to-day stuff. And it'll go a long way toward helping you out. Developers, who are they? Programmers, system administrators, code monkeys, wire apes, etc. They're all developers. Why? Well, because if you need somebody to build an application, you hire a programmer, right? Need somebody to set up a web server, you hire a sysadmin, right? So they're all developers. They have to develop a situation for it. Why are we calling them barbarians? Well, they're hired to do a specific job. They're very good at that job. So they're sort of like mercenaries, but mercenaries were barbarians back in the Roman Empire times. Sometimes they're not very socially acceptable to the business guys. They don't want to be seen with the hackers and developers. They kind of keep them to the side. These developers are also much more likely to belong to the Society for Creative Anachronism, and therefore they justify their ownership of a sword. And they're going to use that sword against me if they have the opportunity. What is their MOFUD? Well, they build a system to requirements. They make it work beautifully. They go home and they now get called at 3 a.m. and they get paid on time. It's summarizing it very drastically, but that's pretty much it. So we're much more familiar with their language, but what about their motivations? Well, what do? They build systems to requirements, right? What are their requirements from security? What are we levying against them? We want you to be secure. I want you to use best practices. It's on Sans. Go to Google, dude. It's not that hard. Just read, right? Well, I took a course from Mutz. Mutz is one of the... Hey, Ziplock's here. Yeah, you're probably going to tell him. I took a course from Mutz. Backtrack. If you ever have the chance to go take a course from this guy, do it. He's brilliant. He breaks really complicated stuff down, makes it very, very simple. He teaches courses on offensive security. And he was telling a story. I think you might have been in the class with me. He's telling the story about somebody hired him to break into a system, do a pen test. And I forget how he did it. He used, I think it was some web app thing. But he broke into the client. And the client was happy and sad because now they knew of a vulnerability. And so they looked at Mutz and said, well, how do we fix this? And he's like, I don't know. You didn't hire me to fix it. You hired me to break in. That's what I did. Okay? How is this helping? It's not. Where the security guy just runs by somebody's desk and says, your system sucks, here's the evidence, plop, and they run away. That's not doing the developer any good. He doesn't care that it's, he does care that it's broke. He wants to know how to fix it. And if you're not telling him, it's not going to work. So what do we mean by secure? Jefe, what does secure mean? What is a plethora? What are those requirements? Do you have a security policy? Are those policy requirements written so that they can be understood by a barbarian developer? Who's responsible for that? Have you ever read Sarbanes-Oxley? Or HIPAA? Have you ever read NIST? God, that sucks. Were those written by developers? No. They were written by lawyers and bureaucrats who wants to make it vague enough such that it'll apply to everything, but specific enough so they can nail your ass to the wall if the situation provides itself. Because that's what lawyers and bureaucrats do. So we're leaving these guys out to dry. They come to our system. They come to your area and they say, "We're going to secure this system." Okay, great, go for it. Well, how? Yeah, We need to interpret these security policies. We need to translate the bogus jargon into actionable requirements for these guys. We need to help them implement those policies. Security guys need to do this. This is how we suck. There's very little of this going on. And here's one of the problems. Schedule pays better than security. Guy Kawasaki says, don't worry, be crappy. You got something? If you're the first to market, it's the difference between buying a Ferrari and buying a BMW. This is what we got to compete against. Why is this scary? Well, because the development of philosophy. A system has two sets of requirements to a developer. They have the functional requirements, and they have the security requirements. This is epic fail. That is not true. A system has system requirements, which include the functional and security requirements. You shouldn't begin to develop a system without an understanding of full set of requirements, right? You wouldn't set up a web server if you didn't know what it needed to do, right? This is one of the things that it needs to do is be secure. And if you haven't written down the security requirements for the developer, it's not going to get done. And more often than not, they do begin development before they have a good understanding of the requirements. This is bad. Why? Software is everywhere. Software is the basis for our socio-economic system. There's a great book out there, Geekonomics by David Rice. Go buy it, read it. It'll scare the hell out of you. It's awesome. And software industry right now is currently like the automobile and railroad industry in the beginning, because they thought, okay, we'll just build stuff. We're in competition. It's a laissez-faire environment. And people are dying, yeah, but that's user end error. Original automobiles, even the big ones, even the fast ones, did not have seat belts. As late as the 60s, seat belts was an optional item because they didn't want to give the impression that cars were unsafe in any way, shape, or form. They recently did a test, I think it was a late 70s or early 70s model of a Chevy Impala and a current Impala. Well, if you've ever seen a late 70s Impala, it's a pretty big friggin' car. Current Impala, and they did a crash test against them. Current Impala destroyed late 70s Impala. There was no way late 70s Impala guy would have survived that crash. You know, modern Impala, he would have got out and walked away. It was a 40-mile-an-hour head-on collision. This is government regulations in action. The only problem is the government doesn't get involved until something really catastrophic happens and the population rises up and says, do something about this. We do not want the government involved after a major disaster in our industry. We need to be proactive about it and get this thing taken care of now. Because have you ever heard the term, we're from Washington, we're here to help? As it sends chills down your spine? Oh my God. It's like, get this guy out of my head. So how are we going to alter this philosophy? We write a security policy. We make it standard, automatic, and mandatory. You have a pre-built set of servers, not just one pre-built server for everything. A pre-built mail server, a pre-built web server, a pre-built Active Directory server, a couple different Linux boxes depending on the mission. The problem with having one version of that is because you have to make it available for everything. So you have a web server that also does mail and DNS. Well, you don't need that on your mail server or your web server. So we need to build a system of building in a system of rewards to the entire situation is a really good way to do this. Oracle and Microsoft have currently used that. Act upon that system positively and negatively. The good example that Oracle gave was like they found somebody who wasn't building their system to security requirements. He didn't get fired, but he didn't get a bonus. Or what I was talking about bonuses earlier, being part of somebody's salary? Yeah. Half your salary because you didn't do security. Bad, bad. And enforce those standards because it's not Microsoft's fault if your administrator logon is password or administrator password is password. Nor is it Oracle's fault if Scott Tiger can log on to your database. That's your fault. How not to suck at security. Well, the policy is written. How much time do I have? Okay, cool. So the policy is written. Enforcement is placed. How does your policy get evaluated? Are you doing your job correctly? I've got a couple of scenarios written there. Say you're performing a security evaluation on the network and you notice that all the machines are vulnerable to the latest Microsoft RPC exploit. Do you pwn those boxes if given the opportunity in your security assessment? Some people say, I don't understand why somebody would want to pwn this. I mean, you've got 250 boxes that are vulnerable to the same thing. What are you going to do with 250 shells on your network? Isn't it kind of like throwing rocks at a blind kid at that point? Seriously, they're all vulnerable. What's the point? You found the vulnerability. Okay, anyway, that's my personal opinion. You inform the organization about the flaw, and the organization patches the machines and schedules you for another scan to make sure it's all good to go. Is that an adequate mitigation? Fail. True vulnerability is your patch management system. How the hell did that vulnerability get into your scanning software before your machines were patched against it? What's up with your patch management system? How come that's not working? Second scenario, you're performing a security evaluation of an organization. You notice a new vulnerable system is suddenly exposed to the internet. You pop this box and gain access to the corporate network. The organization that states, oh, it's just put it there for a development team for testing purposes, and Bob does that stuff sometimes when he has to because he's doing stuff. They remove the box from the internet, and they consider it good. Is this an adequate mitigation? Fail! Lack of configuration management controls left the organization vulnerable to attack. You need to establish a configuration management policy and stick to it. In the book Security Metrics by Andrew Jackwith, he was talking about a scenario where a online banking institution had a problem. Their servers went down for 5 days. 5 days, no server, billions of dollars being lost. So what had happened? Well, one of the developers was out there doing some stuff. He put it on the test machine. He ran some tests against it. It seemed to work. It was Friday. It was late. He moved it to production. Nothing bad happened, so he went home. There was no configuration management policy in place. Nobody was tracking this stuff, and so they didn't know what happened for 5 days, and they couldn't go back and fix it. But who got blamed? Security. We just spent all this money on all this stuff to keep bad guys out, and now we're going through what must be a DOS attack because nothing bad has happened on our side, right? We did everything, right? It's your security boxes that are keeping us offline. So while he was updating his resume, they got the call. They figured out what the problem was, and he was subsequently exonerated, but that was a shitty 5 days for him. Long story short, configuration management policy will save the security guy's butt and also keep the damn developers in line. Sad truth. How many books are out there? Go to the library. How many books do you see on patch management? How many books do you see on configuration management? How many books on hacking? Plenty. What's more cost effective? Paying for a penetration test or using that money in effort to implement an effective patch management and configuration management policy? I hate this slide because I like pen testing. So, scenario number 3, you're evaluating a system in a control gate and a notice a significant design flaw. You tell the guys you got to fix this flaw and reaccomplish the control gate. So the developer says, this fix is going to cause an unacceptable slip in my development schedule, so we don't really think it's a big deal, and we're just going to continue on and make our date, right? Schedule pays better than security. So he's going to accept, so he says, we will accept the risk for the organization. We're going to meet our date. Is that acceptable? No. The developer cannot accept risk on behalf of the organization. That's your CXO's job. And remember the guy who gets fired if it goes bad? Yeah. Not the developer's job to interpret security requirements. That's your job. And if the developer doesn't understand security requirements, then the security guy has failed. And, oh, by the way, they're not going to ask you. You need to engage them. You need to grab them by the throat and say, what are you doing? Interesting story about when they were developing the atomic bomb. One of the risks that they were considering is that if we detonate this atomic device, in Nevada and in the desert, it might set the atmosphere on fire. But the PM says, we have to have this thing exploding by Tuesday. Let's go. So you never depend on your developer for adequately mitigating shit. Okay, we influence the decisions of the Noble Philosopher. We've influenced the behavior of the Barbarian. We talked about ways we suck. So how do we move forward and conquer the world? Well, the Greeks conquered Troy. The Greeks climbed into a horse, and yes, it was not a Trojan horse. It was a Greek horse. I have an argument with that about most security guys, or most history guys. But the Greeks got in the horse. They pulled it into Troy, and they got inside the walls, and then they let their other Greeks in. Number one killer of all mankind is disease. Heart, kidney, cancer, diabetes. Basically, it starts from the inside out. You don't realize that you have anything wrong until it's too late. People will lock their doors. People will buy armed weapons. People will install security systems in their house, but they will forget to take their medicine. So what am I getting at here? What if all the major CXOs were actually you guys? What if lead developers were actually you guys? What if we sent hackers into the world disguised as business people and they made the hard decisions that avoided Armageddon? Well, who should we do that? You guys. What do you think? You want to dump all this whole HackerCon stuff and go get a business degree? Oh, hell no. Fuck that. Go forth among the heathens and speak the truth. There are 18 to 24-month MBA classes. You can go from nerd to numero uno. It's good to be the king, right? There are multiple online development courses to choose from, college and non-college. You can get your Outerzone certification. Think about the crises we can avoid if all the security people were making the decisions. You know, there's courses out there that'll take you to 6 months CCIE or something like that, but there's no courses that'll do that for business guys. Did you ever notice that? You can't just enroll in something and have your MBA in like 12 months. They don't do that for that. Why? Because they think it's too important. That's weird. What do you think? You ready to step out of your comfort zone? Get out of your ivory tower of security, commune with the filthy masses, and get your hands dirty? Do some good for the world? You can do a whole lot of effective change out there. Yeah? Ready to do that? You're going to change the world if you do. Not ready to do that? Well, that's why security people suck. And that is why you fail. Thank you, guys. Yes.
And also, the same comment is related to your slide that you said you made it about penetration testers versus security patches.
Yes.
I would suggest that without penetration testers, there would be a whole lot fewer patch updates.
I agree with you. Without penetration testers, there would be many fewer security updates. That's very true. And like I said, I had 2 days to put this all together. I need to edit my slides to say that there's yes, and it's a valid comment, and I agree with you. And one of the things you're not going to get rid of the need for penetration testing. Never. I mean, the guys who are out there finding these flaws, it's very, very important and very necessary. And penetration testing will continue as a practice for probably the end of mankind because it's fun. They said the comment was the reason MBA courses don't take more than 12 months is because it's about stroking the professor's ego sometimes. Sometimes, yes. And I'll agree with that, too. But yeah, if the people are that good at business, why are they teaching in the college? Because those who can do and those who can't do, teach. And those who can't teach, teach teachers. Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a philosophy class, that's a little bit like saying you can't bring up math and accounting because it's not a math class.
Yes.
There's some, it's hard, I think, for hackers to break into the business world because there is some asinine mindset in there, and maybe you could go stealth for a while and don't speak your mind. I think you might be able to do it, and I can see the merit of getting more hackers in the business space.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some serious culture conflict in getting your qualifications.
That's true. I mean, ruffling the feathers is what it's about, though. I mean, I'm sitting up here talking at a security conference talking about why security people suck. Ruffling feathers is the way to get it done. The MBA. Well, it's true. You don't get a union card, but, I mean, there are debates a lot of the times about formal education and the benefits thereof. And going through formal education is maddening at points. I mean, I took an accounting 101 class in order to get my first, information systems degree. Now, why the hell I needed to take accounting, I don't know, and I hated every bloody goddamn minute of that class, every freaking minute. And I hated the professor because he was up there. He loved accounting, and he was great at it, and he was Indian. So that's a beautiful question. That is a wonderful question. I'm so happy you asked that. I was like, oh, stop, make him stop. Yeah. But the point is, you have to go and deal with the bullshit as well as the glory. I mean, you can't stick to things you love to do every stinking day. You got to do the bullshit. I got to pay my bills. I hate paying bills. I mean, I had to take that accounting class. I hate taking accounting classes. I had to go through math courses that I despised so that I could get my master's degree. But the point is, you take the good with the bad. And did the math classes help? Well, don't tell my professor I said this, but yeah, they really did. The point of, I heard Bruce Potter stand up there and he said, I don't really think that getting a formal education is the most important thing. What I believe he really meant is you can't just get your formal education and sit on that and say, I'm good now because I have my union card, my MBA. Well, you need to keep the hacker thing going on. So what is this problem? Why is this not working? And digging down into the lower nether regions of what the problem is. And that's a good thing that hackers do. But at the same time, there are very few people. I mean, Bruce Potter's not here. Okay, he's the only guy that can put he's the only guy that can put on his resume, I'm Bruce Potter, and get a job. Me, I got to put, education, certification, stuff like that, because nobody heard of me yet.
I was saying, in the process of getting business qualifications,
Mm-hmm.
you have not ruffle feathers if you actually want to get that business qualification in the end. But there seems to be some people with big egos out there.
Oh, yeah. There's some people in here with big egos. I mean, just because the business guy has a big ego doesn't mean that the hacker doesn't have a big ego. So one of the other things Mutz was saying is that he was sitting someplace and they said, you can't hack into this system. You just can't do it. And they challenged him personally. And, he's a great guy. I love him to death. But he's got a big ego just like everybody else. So he wasn't going to attack that system until they told him he couldn't do it. And then he did. And he won. So saying they have big egos is kind of like, turning a blind eye to your own problems. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for not throwing anything at me. Appreciate it.